Hi. I've been fiddling around with the computer and oh, not the computer, the camera, and I don't know what this video is going to come out like, but I wish there was some way that I could zoom in to get close-ups. I've got it on a camera tripod, but it's difficult getting the thing close to the machine or the item that you're taking a video of. So I hope that this will be kind of visible. I took a video yesterday and it didn't come out very well because the light was making everything bright and almost white. So I'm trying to get a little bit of light, but hide it as well. I'm just going to take a chance. When I decided to do George Thomas's dividing head, I didn't buy any castings. Only thing I bought were the gears, and I had a insert that comes off of auto machines, bar feed machines, through the continual moving in and out. The spindles used to get worn as well as the collets. These were the collets that they were using at the time, and so anyway, they always had a supply of these hardened inserts that they could replace in the spindle of the machine when there was a certain amount of wear. So I managed to get hold of one of these, and so when I decided to do this, everything worked around the size of this insert in here. It's hardened and ground, so it's very accurate, and as I've said before, there was a whole pile of these old collets in a tin box, and I managed to get hold of those. So that's how I base this dividing head, designed around George Thomas's but made larger to enable me to use these collets. So it's very handy. They go up to 1/2 inch and they have hexagon and square. So I've got quite a few, and so they fit in here just like this. I hope you're going to be able to see all this, and it screws on, and normal thing. I've used it a few times and it works out nice. So anyway, getting down to the nitty gritty, this is the new adapter, or part adapter that I built, machined, and that goes into here like this, and I have a drawbar at the back, quite a large drawbar. You've probably seen that before as well. That's stainless. So I'll screw this in here and nip it up. That's nipped. Then I have the Taig 3-jaw, okay, and that goes on here. not much room here. I got this vise in the way and I didn't want to take it off because unless it's necessary. Come on. Come on. There we go. So as you can see, it's quite loose because the screw is just a manufactured rolled screw, I would imagine, and so it was just a bolt. So there's plenty of slack there. So I've locked it up. I'll get the dial indicator. I'll try and find a high spot. That's about there. I hope you can see this dial. Okay, I've got that on 0, and this is a 60 to 1 worm and gear. So I'll turn it 60 times and I'll check the run out. There. I need a better. Okay, it showed about 1 thou. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 17, 18, 19, 3 to 4 to 5 to 6 to 7 to 8 to 9, 30 to 1 to 2 to 3 to 4, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 1, 2, 5, 6, 7. Yep, it's half a thou off center. It runs out half a thou off the center. Total 1 thou. So I think that indicates that the system that I used to obtain the ability to produce a thread on the Taig lathe without threading attachments has worked out pretty good. In general, I don't think that's a bad reading at all. So there's two trains of thought in locating and repeating accuracy when you screw a chuck onto a spindle and do it repeatedly and still get the same measurements. That's the old-fashioned way, where lathes like Drummond, Myfords, they all had a smaller thread and a larger register, usually about 1/8 of an inch bigger, and that's how you machined your backplates to fit the spindle. And let's see, my train of thought has gone again. Wow. So there's the old-fashioned way, I guess you could say, where the thread can be fairly loose. The thread itself can be loose. In fact, it really wants to be slightly loose, so that it doesn't have any effect on the backplate when it screws onto the register and the two registers mate, the spindle and the backplate. The register has to be a good fit around the spindle register, and as long as you get that good fit, you're going to get repeatability. Now, in these days, the indication seems to be that you don't need that register, that the thread, the two threads locking together will automatically adjust and give you repeatability within a certain amount or a certain limit. And I think that's okay if you have machines that can produce two good threads, the spindle thread, or fit into an ordinary thread on a spindle without a register, which seems to be the normal thing nowadays on these small lathes. You have to make a pretty good fit of the thread in the bore of your backplate or of your chuck or any adapters that you're applying to the spindle. I think the closer the fit, the better repeatability you're going to get, because if it's too loose, there's a certain amount of weight on the gravity side, and when the threads are locked together, that's the whole idea, is that one thread is supposed to touch the surface of the thread and adjust it so that they lock through the center line of both threads, internal and external. And I have my doubts about which is the best way. To me, I think it's so much easier to be able to, say you want to make an adapter, it's easier to not have to worry about a perfect fit on the thread and rely on a register, which is something that you can measure and hopefully get it within a few tenths fit between one and the other. The loose thread is fine, because as soon as the registers start to touch one another, then the chuck will automatically lift up and they will lock together. And then, so that way you can just turn an ordinary thread or in the bore and have it loose, and it's not going to matter. as long as the two faces, the front face and the register diameter are both square. So for me, I think it's easier for a novice or a person with not so much experience to screw cut. I'm talking about screw cutting now. To screw cut, say they got one of these little Chinese lathes, slightly bigger than the Taigs. Well, they've got screw cutting ability, so I think if you use one of those, it's much easier to just cut a thread that it just goes on, and you don't worry too much about the last tenth or half a thou, and if you make a mistake, it doesn't matter. If you make a mistake on the dimensions of the thread, it doesn't matter too much, because the register is the important part, and that's what's going to give you repeatability. So I think for the majority of hobbyists that don't have a lot of experience and want to screw cut an adapter to fit the spindle of their nose, if it's got a register, then I think that's the easier way to go. Of course, Shearline don't have a register. They rely strictly on the thread fit. But the Taig has a little tiny register, and that register, from what I've gathered, is always a little bit bigger, maybe 2 or 3 thou bigger in diameter than the crest of the threads on the spindle. So to me, that indicates that there's a register there. It's not to my liking. I'd sooner see a larger register than the actual diameter of the thread, but it is a register, and I think that that register, if you can make a good fit on there, will give you the same thing and be much easier to make. So I know I'm going on a lot, but sometimes new things are not always best. That's the way I see it. As you saw in my other, I will stick with HSS for this type of work forever, unless I come across something that's so hard that I need carbide. Carbide has its little direction. HSS won't last so long as carbide, but HSS is more easily formed to shape, and they're quite expensive. I'm just looking at eBay, and they've got little packets of, I don't know, 8 bits. They want $40 for them, and then you've got to pay shipping, and you can have half a dozen HSS tool bits and never have a need for carbide, really. Everything depends on what you've got, and if you've got a little lathe, then in my estimation HSS is fine. If you've got a bigger lathe that's got more power, then by all means go with carbide. But these dealerships and companies that sell you this stuff, they've bombarded you with this idea that you have to have carbide. It's the be all and end all of all things, and it really isn't. So I'm not going to say any more, because, or maybe I shall, maybe I should, I might get more comments. Anyway, I'm going to call off now. You've seen this, you've seen what I've done in the other videos, and it is possible to make adapters for a Taig lathe without having a screw cutting attachment. It's just a little bit of thought, and you can come up with something similar. I've done the same thing with adapters for the spindle, for the lathe spindle, even for here. All I do is I buy myself I got a nice 3/4 16 tap, and I drill a hole and I run the tap through it, and then I use the tap as my mandrel and true everything up from that thread. And I've done a few bits and pieces that come out perfectly. It's no good making the thing and then running the tap through afterwards. You've got to do it the opposite way round. You've got to drill the piece of material, normally aluminium, drill the tapping hole, run the tap through, and then use the centers of the tap to give you the accuracy in machining the face of the attachment that you're making, and it's all on the thread. You can lock it up with nuts, but you can true everything between centers or between chuck and center, and you'll get yourself you could even make yourself a backplate, anything you wanted. Backplate on the a chuck for the Taig lathe. If you didn't want to buy one, you could make one. So these things are possible without all of the equipment. I'm not saying it's good. I'm just saying that you adapt and try and do things in a different manner, but come up with the same results. So there you go. I have 2 chucks and 3 chucks now that I can put on here, and I know that that they're going to be running true. So okay, I'm going to call off now, and thank you for watching all of my videos and viewing them, and any comments are appreciated. Thank you very much.